Okay, so tonight, FE formerly known as Fukas, are talking with Shortman from the YouTube channel Doomweaver 2007. And we're going to talk specifically about your time in Antarctica, as it's quite a rare thing to meet someone that's actually been out there and experienced it firsthand. So good evening, Robert.
Yeah, good evening. How are you?
I'm good, thank you.
Brilliant.
When was it that you actually went out to Antarctica?
That was in 2003. I went out there, so did the bit of training just prior to going. So that was like the end of 2002, and just at Christmas time, just before Christmas, that was when I went down there.
And how long did you stay there for?
It was just over 13 months at Halley, and then I had a break in the Falklands for a month, and then went back to the peninsula, all the islands and the peninsula, to do cleanup operation, which was clearing all the rubbish that was left when they settled the first bases in all these points. So there were lots of points that no one really knew about, in respect to you, unless you had the maps, you wouldn't be able to just kind of stumble upon the actual bases, because they were so hidden and off the kind of standard public area. Because with the public area, I mean, when these cruise ships go down there, they normally go to South Georgia, places like that, and just in that in itself, they don't go to anywhere other than those points. There's about 3 or 4 locations they go around to there, but they don't go to, as an example, Rothera or anywhere on the actual main peninsula itself. They just tend to keep to the islands and the outskirts of the inner parts of the circle and the outside bit. So that's what they do there.
So it was 13 months straight working. So that's quite heavy going before you got a month off.
Yeah, the summertime period, when there's a lot more daylight period, and you get a lull in daylight, but you don't get darkness as in such. The sun moves to one side and then disappears, kind of thing. Then it just comes back. So yeah, that's interesting. But the summer period is when you actually do the most work, which is, there's 2 summer periods at the beginning of the season, and then when the new season starts in the end of your kind of tour. So those are the 2 busiest times, where you've got about a month and a half to 2.5 months, depending on what you're doing in that project. Within that time, that's when you're doing probably 12 to 15 hours a day. So you get up at 7, start at 8, finish at 7, that type of time normally.
So when you say the summertime, you're talking the Antarctic summer?
Yes.
Time. So that's like, which months would that be for Northern Hemisphere?
It's basically, the summertime is our winter time.
Okay.
And so in the summertime, middle of our summer is the middle of their winter.
Okay.
That's the easiest way to describe it, and then it just merges in between.
So in the Antarctic summer, which is our winter, you get the most sunlight, is that right?
Yeah.
Or did I get that back?
Sorry, say again.
In the Antarctic summer,
yes,
which is our winter, you get the most sunlight.
That's correct, yeah.
Okay. And how many hours of sunlight would you say that you get in?
It's a job to say again. It's like when you weren't aware of flat Earth. Did you ever measure the sun? Did you ever pay attention to the sun on a daily basis? You look out, you'll see it, and then you just carry on with your daily life. And that's pretty much how I did day to day there. Wish I'd go back with the mindset and knowledge I have now to do the proper investigation, the proper, the scientific way of actually collecting the information and noting it all, and actually coming up with, something that's relevant So yeah, if I'd have gone down there now, it'd have been a different story because I'd have been actually be able to log things correctly. But then I didn't worry about it. So it's kind of when you're doing the summertime and even when you're the winter, you're so preoccupied with what you have to do in the daily kind of maintenance routine that just in that in itself, there's so much to do. You've barely got time to eat and before the day's over. So it was quite hard to actually log anything when I was there. I didn't really pay much particular attention. I didn't see anything out of the ordinary other than the sun doing its arc, which I didn't notice it doing the 360 circle above the head. It was doing low arcs in like a northerly direction.
Okay.
So that was interesting to note. I mean, that's something I noted when I was down there. But again, I didn't pay much attention to it. And I look back at pictures, and then I can identify, where certain things were pointing. So it kind of helps me know where the sun was then. So yeah, that's the only kind of information I've got.
Nothing strange at that time that struck you as being out of the ordinary, or that you didn't expect or wasn't prepared for?
No, everything that they trained you for before you go down there, you're pretty much prepared for most eventualities. From first aid emergencies to situations that arise due to the military being there. So yeah, you're prepped up on what happens and procedures, and if this happens, if that happens, they run you through it in like a massive health and safety kind of brief.
What was the military presence like at the bases you visited?
There weren't no military presence at the bases, but they patrol all the coastline, and they work closely with all the other. Each country will have their own military that they work with when they're down there. So just in that itself, it's you just tend to deal with, so the UK will deal with the Marines, and I'm not sure who the Americans or other countries deal with, but it's kind of like they'll cover their section of what they're meant to protect or do what they're doing down there.
They're patrolling the coastal areas, so to speak.
Yes, they're patrolling the islands, patrolling the coastlines, patrolling that.
So I've seen some of your photographs of the time that you was there, and it's quite different to what you would expect to see. Like I think especially near the water, and I think it was sand, but it looked really quite black.
Yeah, I think it's because of the depth of the water, literally 3,000 foot below you from that point.
Wow, so it's just like a sheer drop. You can't go like paddling in the water.
No, I wouldn't want to go paddling, and I've seen what kind of swims around in there. You wouldn't want a killer whale or something like that coming up and taking
So
a go.
it's like really deep.
Really deep. I managed to fish it actually. Yeah.
What did you catch?
Nothing. It was too deep. I didn't have a sea trawler to scoop whatever was down there. No, the fish in Antarctica are big and slow, and live to a long age. And you need to be doing the right thing. I was just messing about, eager to try fishing after not doing it a while.
You're a keen fisherman, are you?
Yeah, I like it. Yeah.
So, what was your specific duty down there? What was you hired to do?
Do the maintenance of the plumbing and heating, machinery and equipment, and actually maintain it, repair it, install new stuff, and just keep the whole base warm, water and waste. Yeah.
Looking at some of the photographs you've got, the the buildings and the structures, they seem very flimsy. Like, they don't seem like they would, they're just wooden structures, and they don't seem like they would keep you warm.
Yeah, they're
But I mean,
very well insulated, about half a foot thick. So you do get a lot of insulation in that. They were built to be disassembled. So they were made out of wood purposely for that. So they, when they left there, they could strip as much as they could get out and leave as little impact as possible. But their impact to what impacts, they recognise the two different things, especially with the waste management.
okay, it was kind of shoddy, you would say.
Yeah, it weren't shoddy, but it was ill thought and out of sight, out of mind. With that, there's better ways of dealing with it.
Yeah, it's not like the council are going to be coming around and
I think that's common practice in Antarctica, though, that type of thing.
Okay. And was so you're staying at this base at Halle 5?
Yeah.
So there's you guys, the engineer, the plumbing and heating engineers, the maintenance crew, so to speak.
That's it. Yeah, there's a maintenance crew, a science crew, and then a radio operator, and then the base commander.
And did you know what the science crew were working on? Was you privy to any information, or
I could have asked if I was there, but again, lack of interest, lack of knowing what they were doing,
Yeah, sure. And before you went to Antarctica, when you was employed to do this job, did you have to sign any kind of secrecy act or anything like that?
No secrecy act, no.
To do all the first aid training and
all that type of training, yeah, to ensure that you could climb, you could deal with emergencies and situations that arise like that.
You're fit enough to be out there in extreme conditions.
Yeah, you go through like a full medical and then all the kind of training to ensure you can do what you can do.
Okay. And was you excited to get the position and to be going out there?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I would have.
I timed it well, and I, it was good timing to get down there and actually do that. It's a once in a lifetime opportunity.
Yeah, absolutely.
You can't pay to go down there. Literally, you can't pay to go down there. If you're a millionaire, billionaire, you might be able to have a escorted flight over it, but you're not going to be able to do what you want because there's so much secrecy in certain areas down there. That's why. So,
in your mind, how do you see Antarctica? Do you see it as the outer circle of our known continents?
Without any real concrete information or anything you can tangibly look at and say, yeah, that's correct, then all the maps kind of could apply. But I would say it's more likely going to be, again, it's my own opinion, but it could be of the rounder type of map that has, these two supposed one continent separated as part of two. I think that could be a possibility. But again, without knowing and without getting to that altitude and flying around the edge and doing that type of high altitude, you couldn't really get a full picture of really where you are and what you're doing. And even with the current satellite images, the amount of people I've spoke to in regards to what information that they can put out there is, it's another thing. They don't know what information it is. Even the satellite brokers that actually deal with tasking information, and if you wanted to buy information and pictures, these are the people you would go to if you were a company or wanting to use those for a particular purpose. So yeah, I've spoke to many people of that nature, and yeah, they either and ah or can't actually answer the question, or just try and divert around that and say they can do this and say they can do other things without actually providing any evidence from that. Same with Google Maps, same with all the current overlays,
Yeah.
and the same with a lot of these satellite companies. There's reasons, because the Americans' bases and all these other bases, they're likely to have stuff that they don't want to be seen. So the way to do that is then restrict the satellite images so you can't see these locations or around the locations to see if anything's happened.
Yeah, very interesting, very secretive as well.
Yeah.
So, about the Falklands War, because I mean, you stayed there on your time off.
Yeah, I spent about a month and just over a month there.
And I've seen some photos of that as well. That looks like a real beautiful place to be. Lots of greenery.
Like Scotland in some of the areas.
But I mean, I remember the Falklands War when I was only a kid at the time, and I don't remember, what it was really about. Just that we was at war over these islands. Do you think that it was anything more to what we're told? Do you think it had more to do with
Oh yeah,
strategic bases in Antarctica than?
it's a combination, I'd say. Combination of, supposed ideas that I'm come up with, and that's one would be that they're using it as a launching platform to get to Antarctica easily. So they've got, BAS has a, British Antarctic Survey has an actual building and shop there, with all the other shops and amenities on in Stanley.
Okay.
Same with their military base, Mount Pleasant Airport. I spent a good bit of time at the actual military base, because that's where you fly into anyway. You fly you fly from Bryce Norton to Ascension, and then from the Ascensions to Mount Pleasant, and that's the, so you're going military base to land.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's
because I always. Sorry, I was just going to say, there's not any regular civilians living at the Falkland Islands. Oh, there must be two in there.
Yeah, there's loads. There's a whole community of people, thousands.
Yeah.
So that's, they've lived there all their life, so they're pretty much their own people. They've got their own law for that area. You have to have a visa when you're there. You have to get a visa.
Oh, to get onto the
You can't just go down there and do what you like. It's not just like jumping onto the British Isles, even with a passport. You have to have a visa for the reason of your stay there. So they're very much kind of like that. Nice people though.
So but it's heavily controlled, right? To even just get to the Falklands.
Yes. Yeah, you have to go through various means to get there. You can sail there, I suppose, and just dock into the thing, but you still have to go through customs and visas and that type of thing. So it wouldn't be no difference.
So while you was there, going back to the bases, was there any kind of time out? On military bases they have like the what do they call the mess hall, or where people can go for a drink on a Friday or whatever.
Yeah.
Is it anything like that?
Yes, they did that regularly. It was kind of like a tradition on the base to do that type of thing and relax, because you're in such an extreme desert environment, and it is a desert. You can't drink the water. It's so cold outside, so it's not water. It's just powder and solid stuff that you couldn't whack with a pickaxe. So I know I've used a pickaxe there quite a lot, digging up massive holes. Because the amount of infrastructure and pipework and everything that links into all the buildings, there's a huge amount of maintenance. So some of the pipes had problems, so I had to dig a vast cavern and channel out at certain points, and it's back-breaking work.
So did you have any kind of heavy machinery to help with the job, or? Yeah,
they had all the massive industrial equipment to assist, but a lot of it you still have to do by hand. You couldn't start digging pipe work out of the ice with a digger or a bucket, because it's just going to rip and tear everything up. So yeah, a lot of the stuff and every day to get your water, you have to kind of shovel about a ton of snow down the ice, down this chute that went into this underground chamber. And it was like if you imagine a vessel with inside this large container, and it, something you can actually climb around, hold about 50,000 litres of water, so it's a pretty big vessel. And inside that vessel, you can get round the outside of it to maintain all the stuff. In the summertime, that's cleaned out so that everything's drained out of it. People like that this summertime when it's time to clean it out, because it means that you have to get rid of the water. And the only way you can do that is either turn the taps on or have, ridiculously long showers. So people are just like half an hour in the shower, that type of thing. Whereas before you're limited to 2 minutes.
Yeah, you have to be really quick and careful.
It's recommended you do that, because the water you use is the water you'll be shoveling the next day.
Yeah, so quick as you can, type thing. But it must be nice once the summer rolls around just to take it easy and relax a bit with how much water you can use, etc.
Yeah, the pace of life is a pace you can control when you're there, so things go very slowly.
Did you find yourself getting bored at any points, or like wishing you were somewhere a bit warmer?
Again, when you're in that situation, you have to have a kind of real strong mindset. If you start to go down any of the emotional routes to that, it ends up with a negative reaction after a certain period of time. So you just have to push through those feelings. You have to acknowledge them, but there's a difference in dwelling on things and actually focusing on what you're there to do and actually succeeding without any problems, without any emotional problems to bring back.
Absolutely. Was there anybody there in your time that did suffer any kind of mental breakdown?
No, not through the winter period, not through the people that were seasoned, people that were actually could cope with it and have done previous tours, that type of thing. So no, that everyone that was there was geared up to work together, team together, and sort out any minor disputes amicably, quickly, and no problems at the end of it.
Yeah, because that could be a real problem with.
Yeah, you can't hold too many kind of those things in you, and if you do, you just keep them into yourself. So yeah, you learn to deal with lots of emotions that no one ever deals with, because no one's ever in that situation of having to live with 14 strangers for like a period of 12 months, 13 months. So yeah, it's a unique thing to do.
People think about being isolated. It's really hard to imagine actually how isolated you were while you was in Antarctica. It's not like you can just go off on the weekend to the next city and have a good time, or meet some different people or anything like that. You really are isolated for that duration of time.
Totally, yeah.
So,
you're isolated physically. You're isolated because you've got no chance of a plane or a rescue within the winter period. None of the planes are operational anyway, because they keep them in storage in that period of time. So that period of time you really have to deal with everything. So there's a doctor that's there.
So is that on your mind while you're there in the winter time, that, oh God, if anything goes wrong, there's no planes out of here or anything like that,
No, they had various backup buildings, so if one caught on fire, that type of thing, you could get over to the other building, formulate a rescue plan, you'd have food, you'd have that type of facility. They almost had a clone of the actual main building, and it was a summer building that they used as a summer habitation for all the steel workers that used to go down there.
And what were the steelworkers?
In the winter time, it was pretty much shut down, you know, decommissioned, everything drained, and then in the summertime it was recommissioned, ready for them. So there's 2 buildings that could be used in that situation, and all the other camping supplies and tents and food to go with that. That's all externally stored. There's a lot of dry stuff externally stored in separate shipping containers that, you know, they had a line of about 30, 40 shipping containers. So those big containers you see on the lorries, those just placed straight on the ice.
Yeah. Oh wow.
With various supplies in each one. You know, each one was indented into a different kind of category. So if you wanted certain parts or certain things, you would access those lockers to get that equipment or materials.
That's really interesting. So the bases then that are there, they're set up to look after the scientists that are doing the important work, and the maintenance guys and the chefs and everyone else. You have to look after each other, but it's also that the scientists can keep doing whatever it is they're doing down there. Would that be correct?
Yeah, that's correct. That's correct.
So, you was at Halley 5.
Yeah, that's correct.
I mean, I've no idea in my mind where that would be, you know.
Nor do I.
Really strange, you know, because we're given this.
I could have been anywhere. Somewhere cold. Somewhere that they said was Antarctica. Somewhere on the edge. I wasn't in the middle. The middle's cold, but no.
I've lost my train of thought. So, but you spent some time. Was it Deception Island? You spent some time at?
Yeah, I went to all the islands, literally. Every single British base down there, and then all the islands in between. So, you know, the South Georgia, Sydney, Byrd Island. I mean, there's a big list of them. KEP.
Around quite a bit then.
How
is it?
We went on the way down. It's a 5 to 6 day kind of cruise from the Falklands to where I was dropped off. And, you know, in between that, they stopped in the various points to either drop off supplies, pick up supplies, transfer personnel, that type of thing. Any maintenance and repairs on the bases that you're passing by, then that would be dealt with at the same time by me and the crew that were on board the ship.
And how did you move from one base to the next? Was it always by ship, or was
ships? And then they got like kind of fast rescue boats, you know, quick transport. So you just jump in those things. You wear like a dry suit, you know. So if you suddenly get immersed in -2 degrees water, you're not gonna die of hypothermia in like 2 or 3 minutes or something like that. Yeah.
So, I mean, for plumbing and heating engineer, that's quite an exciting gig to get. Was it something that you set out to get, or how did that come about?
Well, I was in the right place at the right time and spoke to the correct person, and it was a pure coincidence, an event that happened, and just by doing that allowed me to go there. So no, I didn't search it out, didn't seek it out, didn't know about it, just had it appear in front of me.
Yeah. Oh wow. So you're kind of blessed.
On that one, yeah. I've had a few incidences like that.
So, as the general public, we're told that the Antarctic Treaty is to protect this pristine continent, etc. But how would you explain it in your mind? How do you think what it's really set up for?
Oh, that's what they say, and that's their spiel and speech that they kind of push out every time. But I would say it's more to control the area, because if you control the area by not allowing anyone to do anything there in the first place, then you gain maximum control, even more so than places like Area 51 because it's physically, you know, you can get to Area 51, you can walk onto the base. You get arrested and you'll get contained, and you know, they'll deal with you whichever manner they see fit. But somewhere like Antarctica, one, it's extremely physically difficult to get there, and two, you know, to get anywhere across that landscape is, you know, it's a nightmare. And it's only, you only appreciate that when you start walking across it. And you know, I spent nearly 3 or 4 weeks camping and living out there. No, probably longer than that, about 4 to 5 weeks, I would say, in total. So a huge amount of time living in that condition and walking and exploring.
Hiking and camping and exploring the terrain.
Well, exploring, it's like seriously dangerous exploring. It's not like kind of the average, you know.
Like it's not
like hiring a guide and going up Mount Blanc attached to like other people doing that. No, it's extreme. It's like Everest kind of extreme, because if it goes all wrong, then you're dead. There is no kind of, you know, if you disappear down a crevasse and something happens and they can't sort you out, yeah, you're gone. The same as when you're driving skidoos over it and linked up, you know. Great chance you can get squashed between these things as well.
So what's a skidoo? Can you describe one of those for me?
A skidoo is like a snowmobile. That's just a particular maker I was using, which they had down there. But the snowmobile allows you to get across that terrain quickly and safely, kind of thing. Because you can drive over the crevasses if you're quick enough.
Yeah, kind of dangerous though. Did you do any crevasse jumping on your skidoo?
No, I went through it and see the back end dropping a few times, but you just keep going and don't look back. Just don't go the same route on the way back.
Wow. So you spent this time in Antarctica and then you come back to the UK.
Yeah.
And how long after that did you start to look into you know, flat Earth theory? Or...
Oh, I mean, it was many years after that. It was pretty much, you know, December last year I started to kind of think about it and look at it. And that was pretty much that kind of led me down the route to do a bit more investigation, read a bit more about it, and think a bit more as well.
Yeah, because I mean, when we're presented with the you know, the idea of the globe and space and everything in school, we're not allowed to kind of think about things or question things. We're just told that's how it is, you know. And if you put your hand up and say why or how does that work, that's just the way it works, you know. So as an adult, when you come across some different kind of information,
yeah,
it does take a little while for it to sink in, but all of a sudden you start seeking out, you start thinking, looking at it from all different angles, and eventually come to the conclusion that, oh my goodness, we've all been terribly lied to, like, this whole time. And
yeah, I mean, I did come to that realization, but I mean, it's really come to light when I'm doing the research I'm doing now, which is just, you know, quite in-depth reading and actually thinking about the, you know, the situation of everything. And that's not easy to do, because if you start to do it down the route of speculation, then you kind of start, it will tie us up in knots. So we have to kind of go down it on the route of using that wisely, but also using the ability to discern science. You can only discern science once you can understand science, and without understanding it, you cannot use it as a basis to use any information to say what's truthful and not. So therefore, that's the route I'm going down, which is an awaken and aware route, rather than jumping to nice conclusions which suit the situation at that time.
yeah,
So yeah, it's important to do it that way. And any other way will always lead down the route of jumping on one thing as soon as it comes up, which is okay, but it's not necessarily the correct route to. to lock in information and find out whether it's correct, and then take that information that you've read apart to look at it.
Fascinating. When I was doing some research on Antarctica, I came across Admiral Byrd and his expeditions to Antarctica, and the way it was kind of presented to, I think, to the public back in the day was that, you know, he was this retired naval captain and that had a passion for exploration, and he was this lonely explorer that went down there to, you know, just to serve his own interest, his own, to, you know, see what he could make of it himself. But really, when you get into it, there were large scale operations. It wasn't.
Yes, there were large scale operations, and a lot went down there that wasn't really kind of discussed. And there was a huge amount of speculation added to it. But he went down there for the reason of investigating those lands, supposed lands further south and North Pole from that point. So his investigation was looking and researching those places and seeing if he could actually get beyond the South Pole points. And yeah, he did. He certainly got into areas which they didn't want him, or whatever was there didn't want that situation, because again, pure speculation, but there was the talk of things being shot up, aircraft being shot down, and then there being a quick retreat out of there with the armada of people and crew and ships that they had and vehicles and everything else. So I mean, it's interesting that they have that kind of basis to it. But I would say there's definitely more to the story than we're let on with the public version that's presented to everybody.
Yeah, absolutely.
You'd really need to dig into the details of like old records and writing and that type of thing, and actual, journals, manuals, newspaper articles at that time to actually see if you can get any kind of more truthful information. That would be the way to kind of dig deeper into it. But I haven't worried about it. There's so much that happens down there that you wouldn't know that was going on, because it's such a vast area anyway. Which means that each country, if they want to do something, they could pretty much do that without any interference whatsoever.
Yeah, nobody's gonna any suspicion that anyone's up to anything. It's not always, we just saw them doing something illegal or whatever. They can pretty much get away with whatever they want to in their own areas.
Yeah, definitely, they can do that, and there's nobody to tell them different. So if they were doing if they wanted to do something independent from any set of authority down there, if they had that in mind and they had a set team to do that, that's how they would do it. They would just get on with it.
So now you're well on the road to deeply investigating the nature of this place we live, and that it's not how it's set up the way we've been taught in schools. What kind of what's the biggest what was the most shocking thing that you learned, that kind of made your jaw drop and you thought, oh my.
Don't know, I'm gonna have a good think.
Too many.
Yeah, I mean, there were so many jaw-dropping things down there that you kind of have to deal with. Just getting off the ship is, a situation itself. You're dropped off on like a kind of cargo net basket. You don't just walk off on like a thing. So that's the first, that's your introduction into it. You're dropped off on the edge of the ice, and then there you go. That's your home for a year. If that's not more jaw-dropping, I don't know what is. That pretty much did it for me. Yeah.
It's
Anything else after that was nothing yet.
a vast.
Some people, yeah, some people couldn't cope with that, and they lasted a day or so, just from that experience of going down there. So
Oh,
there was
really?
two or three people that couldn't cope with it, either broke down or had emotional problems that suddenly surfaced instantly, and then some people that were set down there to go for the whole winter period slowly crack up within 2 or 3 days, and then start saying very
I was watching.
odd and unique things, and and when someone starts saying that, heads start turning.
You start sleeping with one eye open.
Yeah, you don't want Jack Nicholson with a hatchet at your door in the middle of winter. No.
I was watching this documentary of this old Australian guy that used to work as a.
I have seen that. I know the one you're on about.
Yeah, and he kind of lost his mind.
He did. I mean, the truth on that story, I mean, I would say it's probably got some validity within that, especially with him talking about the nukes and stuff that, nuclear power and those type of reactors that they use in those places. Because if they had that type of facility down there, it would produce power. They wouldn't need fuel. They wouldn't need a continuous thing. They've got water there. They've got enough water to last forever. So water's not a problem as long as you can keep it warm, circulating and cooling whatever it's cooling. There's plenty of cooling down there as well. So, what better place to have something that produces lots of heat than somewhere where you've got cooling 365 days a year?
Yes, kind of already built-in system for it.
It is, yeah.
Naturally built-in cooling system.
So, I mean, I think the rules were less strict when he was down there, but it does sound like he was chemically lobotomized or, shut.
Yeah, because his daughter was trying to get to the bottom of the situation, because she just remembers him going away to work and then coming back one time, and the mum couldn't cope with the way he was behaving, and then she never saw him for years and years.
Some people unfortunately can have that kind of mental weakness, and then if they're suddenly exposed to like high levels of acid or LSD, that type of thing, then they could have like a psychological adverse effect from that. And if the dosage is high enough to start at the beginning and they're not in the right situation, mindset, people that are working along with him, so friends in a safe environment, if someone's done that to be spiteful, then they could do a massive amount of psychological damage at the beginning. So, it's hard to say, but with the things I know now, there's more secrecy going on down there than anything else in regards to those type of things. So, it does hold a bit of weight, rather than the chap just saying that, especially with him going down there. But again, unless it's the situation of the way the documentary portrayed it, it just seemed like, everything was rife there: drugs, drink, alcohol, that type of thing, and it was a free for all with that. So whether he's got into the wrong circle and they've tried to do him in that respect, or whether he saw something and then that was the sequence of events to cause him to to have a meltdown. Yeah. They might have said, if you say anything, we're gonna do something to you or your children or your family at home while you're here, and you won't be able to do anything about it. So they could have. There's many ways that they could work that situation to their own advantage, and speculate anything really. But from what he was saying, I would say it's stronger than acid. It wouldn't make you go like that. That's more chemically lobotomized, so chemicals that was certainly kind of designed to do certain damage or certain restrictions to your mind.
Yeah, because it was very sad for the daughter, because she never really got any real answers from what she was looking for. It was all too confusing for her to comprehend. But the basic story was that he worked out there as a scientist. They had a real good time, like all the guys down there. it was a kind of free for all, like you said, and then possibly he saw something that he wasn't supposed to, or something that freaked him out. A way to deal with him was that he was chemically lobotomized, and when he came back, he was never the same. He never recovered.
Yeah, I think it was down to what happened when he was there, whether he saw something or whether he was spiked after he saw something. Something happened
Yeah.
that caused him to react that way. So much so that he just, he's just gone completely, wasn't he?
It's sad.
It was sad. Sad for the daughter as well, because she's trying to look at him as in the light where she saw the pictures prior to that, and how he was, liked to do all his sports, and he was a loving father, and they were all together, and everything was fine, no problems at all. So yeah, there's a lot of psychological damage that can go down into these situations as well. Like I said, it's not the run-of-the-mill situation where you can just go down the road and then think, I don't like it here, I'm not happy with this situation. Wherever you are in the plane, you can get back mostly, unless you're in the jungles of Bolivia or somewhere like that. So deserts or anywhere that's extreme is the way to treat these places. So people crack up. But, even in a situation where you're enjoying yourself, if you start to go down that route of having a weak mind, then you stand no chance of being able to cope with it.
That's probably why you're so well vetted before you go down there. Like, I suppose the mental aspect of dealing with those conditions and the isolation are kind of just as dangerous as the physical conditions.
Well, yeah, the doctors have burnt bases down in other bases before, especially in the Argentinian camps. So the doctors have gone mental, and it's actually burnt the whole base down before. So it can happen to the most professional people out there. It doesn't matter who you are and what it is. It's having the strength of mind to cope with it. Survival situation, any type of situation like that. And if you've got the mindset, you can cope with any extreme drama whenever it happens, and you just kind of roll with it and deal with it.
So would you describe your time down there as enjoyable?
Oh yeah. I had a good time. I got on with everyone.
I mean, it sounds like
there's a few ex-military down there as well, so I kind of get on well with those types, because I was in the territorial army for 2 years. So understand all those people, and I met up with them all in the military base at the Falklands anyway. So catching up with people. Listen, you meet them before you go down, so it's not like you just don't know these people to start with. You getting chucked in right at the deep end with 14 people you've never met before, or whatever the number they have for the winter complement. So yeah, you get used to the people, and you soon make friends, get on with people. Yeah.
That's your experience in the Antarctic, which we're told is an ice continent on the underside of the globe. What's your opinion of the North Pole?
Probably just as mysterious as well.
Yeah. Do you think there's any bases there, or?
Oh yeah, I really do think. That's where they do that's on George Island. That's where they've got the Mars bases and that type of thing. So yeah, no, they're doing a lot of in North Canada, Greenland, and then working around those points there. And again, unless you've gone through those points and actually mapped the area, you can't really say what's there. So, from reading these historical accounts and stuff that's been written down, it says something's there, like Mount Meru or that type of thing. So yeah, it's a possibility that you could have those type of central objects or something there that's, again, it's not guarded in the same respect as Antarctica. There's not a North Pole Treaty where no countries can do anything there. They can all go there and do what they do. That's why the Russians have drilling rigs within that Arctic Circle. for the same reason. So yeah, there's less restriction that they say that's there, but again, without exploring it, without getting your own ship and supplies and crew and just heading off, say, right, I'm going to go that way, and then just keep going. That's the only way you can ever really prove these places physically exist, unless you kind of start to go on the evidence of photos and then stories and then slightly more factual things that might be more correct. So yeah, again, it's a. I think there could be something there. I have a feeling there's something there.
At least like a landmass or this Mount Meru.
Yeah, a landmass, and if the maps are anything deceiving like they could be, which is something similar to Cammy and Bob's map on Globebusters, then therefore, you know, the lands could extend beyond the points where they say the poles end because of the magnetic field grid lines crossing over or overlapping, or giving you a misdirection of where you think you're going to where you are wanting to go. So yeah, it's possible.
So for the average person, it's virtually impossible for us to actually know. And this is what kind of frustrates me and makes me a little bit angry, because we don't really know in relation to everybody else where we really are. Like, you know, we've got all these map projections and stuff, and we've got flight paths and everything else. But once you're up in a plane, the captain can say you're going over some ice-capped mountains and say, oh, you know, that's the North Pole, but it could really be anywhere.
It could be, and if you're not got like some sophisticated compass sat there tracking where you're going and what's happening, and looking where you're going at the same time, then you're just going to be like a passenger like everyone else, which you just take it for granted. When you sit on these planes, you go from A to B and that's it.
Yeah.
Whereas I think, you know, you start flying it, you see a different perspective. I did a lot of flying when I was down there.
So you're a pilot?
No, I was a co-pilot. I've had lots of flying experience prior to that. So, you know, when I was really young, and then to middle, you know, young age kind of thing, doing flight training. So yeah, I've done a lot of different things within different fields.
So,
yeah.
In the flight training that you've done, and the stuff that you remember that they taught you, once you started to delve into flat Earth theory, did any of that come back to you and you thought, oh, hang on a minute, you know, we always fly the plane straight, or, you know, if we carry on flying on the straight path, why wouldn't we just go off into space eventually, eventually get higher?
I did so much flying down there. Once you get beyond like many hours, it's like sitting in a simulator. It's all the same thing. So yeah, flying is first exciting in the first hour. The second hour, yeah, you're still excited, and then once you start getting beyond that, it's like a big long car journey. There's not much difference. But yeah, you're looking out the window, you're surveying things, you're seeing mountains and objects as you pass things. So yeah, it's interesting in that respect. But yeah, it's very kind of same. And if you're not aware of any flat Earth information, then you can't, you know, recreate the cockpit in your mind from, you know, there's certain aspects of looking back, but I've got a good memory, but not to recall instrument readings and stuff like that. No, and without that knowledge, I wouldn't have made any notes to do that. I would have made reference notes and key points to put details down, but not now. It's all.
Yeah. So I mean, you've
wishful
got
thinking.
a very varied, you know, time in the territorial army, some time practicing to fly, and then you time in Antarctica. So I mean, you really, you're kind of like an adventurer in your own right.
Yeah,
you know?
I've done quite a bit like that. I mean, I've done a huge amount of climbing and other things like that. So most of the courses that I went on, I was already to the level of passing the courses or beyond anyway. So that it was quite easy to do. There's nothing better than going on a course where you're already kind of skilled within that course before you go on it. So yeah, lots of things like that were second nature.
when there's a, like the Antarctic Treaty, and the other countries all they all agree on it and everything.
Yeah.
But then you have like deep deep sea trawlers and stuff, and fishing boats.
Again, I think they're really restricted when it starts coming into that circle point. So once they start to come into that zone, that's when the countries start to, they've got radars on their ships, so they know what's coming within the area. They're not blind to ice flows. Even the ship I was on had a radar, so when you're going, you can actually see the ice flow before you're there on it.
What's it like being on an ice floe? Just to change the subject.
The ship, you mean? Pretty spectacular. It's like another adventure in its own right, because you're not just in Antarctica. You're going to all these locations, so you're traveling around Antarctica in a different, in the ship form, which allows you to get off at these places where if you're flying, the locations of points tend to have to be places where you can refuel or resupply and that type of thing, which are, they have various locations that are dotted all around the points, the supply points, so you can actually do like a relay to get to point A to point B.
Yeah.
So if you had to stop within 3 or 4 times within that, you'd refuel once or twice, depends on how long you're flying for.
What is the kind of stuff that you're working on at the moment? Like, what's really got your interest that you're looking to really interested in?
I've been doing a lot of really good work with Robert Pisano at the moment. So we're currently working on a moon project, which will tell us the exact distance, what the moon is to our Earth, rather than their surmised distance. So yeah, little things like that. Well, I say little, they're pretty big, but yeah. It's all good, and doing it in a proper format to find out. But yeah, there's so many other things that I've got kind of stored up, ready to go. I can't let too much out, otherwise it'll get everyone else researching what I'm trying to do and jump on it before me. But the moon thing, that moon thing is something that will be coming out in the near future. Yeah, it's just a few calculations. Quadrillion, zeros, that type of thing.
I mean, just for anyone that's watching, how far away are we told the moon is? It's
about, without looking at the exact figure, I think it's 200,000 or 300,000 kilometers away from Earth. That's what they say.
I'm told that the sun is like 93 million miles away. I don't know what that is in kilometers. But we're given this, when you think about it, ridiculous reason why the sun and the moon look a very similar size, and we're just told that the sun is like 400 times bigger and 400 times further away, and they just appear to be a similar size.
No, I think the best question to ever answer any globe person is just say what is the cause of 9.4 meters per second? That's all you have to say.
9.4 meters a second.
Yeah. What is the cause?
What is the cause of it?
Yep.
And what?
And they cannot do it because it is the equation for gravity, and with any equation of science, you have to have a cause and effect. So the effect is gravity, but they can't actually say what cause is, and just by that in itself, it debunks the actual scientific method of what they're portraying with that. So yeah, it's doing it in the right manner that you're aware of what everything is.
Yeah, because I think, especially as well, even as adults, they try and baffle us with the numbers and the mathematics, and to a point where our brain just notes and we think, okay, yeah, you're smarter than me. That must be true.
No, it's really kind of so easy. All people really have to do is just think about what they're reading and just literally think and relate it to what it's saying to what it's not saying. And once you can work out that, you can literally pick anything apart. But it's easier said than done. And it that's something I can't help anybody with. That's a personal journey that they'll have to take to actually try and do it. But I ask people to do the research first of all. It's no good just jumping on something without doing any research into what it is. So as for example, it's all nice with having the trees, but without doing any research on it, you're merely jumping and speculating at something that hasn't been proven. Science hasn't proven it. History hasn't.
Sorry, what was you talking about then?
Talking about the trees.
Oh, the trees, yes.
Or not talking about it in respect to actually, until we get some concrete evidence in to say what it is and what it isn't. It's a big speculation and it's a big distraction in my opinion, yeah.
And from every angle of research that you'd have to
I'm not saying we don't need to look into it. There's no law in what you can research in flat Earth, but what it is if you're doing research without actually looking at the stuff that's already out there, then you're looking at the same. It's no different to what you're doing already with actually saying what it is, because if you can't say what it isn't without looking at the research, then you really can't say what it is.
No. I did watch that video and I did find it very interesting and intriguing, and it certainly opened up the imagination, got the imagination going. But yeah, there's no way that you could say, oh.
No, these locations are special, and I'm certainly not denying that these locations aren't special. But what they are is something that you would never be able to get there and test, because most of these places are restricted sites or national trust or that type of site where you're not going to be able to go along and drill a big borehole and start doing surveys to see what's under the ground. Because that's the only way you can do seismic surveys. There's about 20 different types of scans you can do underground, and various different types to do various different rock structures and all that. So without looking into any of that research, we're jumping on the imagination of someone else saying it is something that it isn't. Which we can't say it is, we can't say it isn't. So therefore, just by in that saying, it shouldn't be any more important than doing all the other research that we're doing. It should be just the same. So by bringing it up to a massive attention, it's not really beneficial, especially if it's proved to be a load of nonsense. And then some scientist comes along and actually gives a demonstration and a physical example of how that can happen. And once that does happen, if everyone's suddenly jumped on the bandwagon and not done any research, not looked into it, not read or thought about it, the damage to that will be a lot more physical on the person, because they're going to feel stupid and they're going to feel, not ridiculized, but it certainly will make them think what they're doing, jumping on something like that. So yeah, without doing any kind of real judgment of what it is in the first place, I just treat it as another thing and think, oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, until you're busy with whatever you're researching at the moment. The distance of the moon. Are you going to move on to the distance of the sun after that, or have you already got that down?
No, that would be relation to the moon. Once I know the distance of that, then might be able to work out the distance to the sun. But it's big number crunching, so I'm going to do that first, work it out, and see what happens.
Many years ago, going way back in time, they used to measure the distance of the sun using a sextant. These things, and they're kind of expensive, out of my price range. Is that anything like that you would be looking to use, or you strictly on the?
No, I tend to go for, again, physical information that's been attained from facilities and that type of thing. So yeah, that's the way it's been done.
You're going with modern data, modern technology
technology. Yeah, I wouldn't use anything old in respect to actually trying to work out something accurately, because there's much more accurate ways to do things nowadays.
So Are you happy with the way your moon research is going?
Yeah, it's going well. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and how long before you'll be releasing that information?
Well, again, it's we're still working on it, and there's 2 or 3 minds at it. So there's no rush. We've got the data. We've got all the raw data, and we've got the key code to work out what the raw data means. It's just a question of establishing what will happen after that. So yeah, calculations.
Exciting, and something to look forward to.
Yeah, definitely.
I mean, what are your personal thoughts on the moon? Like, do you think it's a sphere, like a rock in the sky, like that we're told, or?
It's I would say again, it could be a number of things, but you know, if they're firing physical objects at it and seeing it's there, you know, it's no different to them firing up the lasers on the sodium layer up in 60 kilometers. So it's closer than they say it is, and I think the data will show that once we work it out.
The moon is a magnificent thing to watch and to follow its cycles. It's kind of mysterious. I mean, it has its repeatable cycles, but it brings a lot of mystery with it. You know, I feel like it has a large effect over the way people behave at certain times of the month.
Yeah, I'd say so with that. Yeah.
Yeah. And that like when people compare the sun and the moon, and I always feel like that the sun would be like a male energy because it's like constant, whereas the moon does remind me of a woman because it's kind of unpredictable but predictable, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Do you have a telescope, a camera?
Me, I've had telescopes and I've got one, but I don't use it.
How are you? Are you just monitoring the moon visually and taking data that way?
If I said it, it'd be disclosing the way I'm doing it.
Okay. I'll stop asking questions about it.
If I said it, it would literally give the game away, and I'm not going to do that just yet.
Okay, I'll give up on that one. But yeah, the moon. People should really take notice of the skies a lot more, and just look up and monitor the moon's precession and the different stages it goes through every month, and the different types of light it gives off, because it can look very different from one night to the next. Like sometimes it can look incredibly close.
Yeah, that's true actually. Different.
You can see so much detail, and then other times it looks quite far away, and it's a different, more silvery light. So it's different all the time. But also, people should pay attention to the sky more. I think everyone's locked into looking at the phone or watching television, or just not paying attention to what is going on above us, because it's so fascinating, and really told about it is it's a lot of fantasy, really. It's just
Well, it is, yeah. I think you're right, and that's why everyone needs to really look into it deeper than we're doing, I think, to find this.
Yeah.
It requires everyone to do the research and look at it. And I think once everyone does that, you really start to form a better picture. And it's no good just watching videos. That you've really got to read to absorb the information to learn it that way.
Yeah, and become familiar with it.
Well, if you're not familiar with reading, then you're not familiar with doing the research, and then you can't really read the papers where they put stuff that's very interesting. So if they're going to put information that discloses something that you're looking into, you can't find that if you don't know how to read a paper in the first place. So it's having the ability to just look at any bit of information and just look for interesting points in it.
Yeah, it's a good point actually, because I mean, if you've just been to regular school and you didn't take your education too far, when it comes to reading research papers and stuff, it becomes really hard going. You know, it takes a lot of getting used to the language that they use and the way that it's set out and everything. So it really takes 2 or 3 reads of something to take in the information.
Yeah.
But when people are well educated in that area, they can just read page after page after page and absorb everything that's there. Whereas the average person on the street would read the information and just take it at face value without actually understanding it.
Yes. Yeah. That is true.
It's interesting how language and things are used against us, and that we aren't really taught the.
No, that's done on purpose.
No, like if you go to a court for whatever reason, they're speaking a different language. It sounds like plain English.
They do that on purpose. It's a way of controlling everyone. If you're controlled in education and controlled with what your knowledge is and controlled with these things, then you're not aware of the things that are imposed against you in the first place, which suits them to their purpose perfectly.
But we realise the shackles that have been placed around you.
The shackles are integrated in everything within society completely, 100% throughout. The New World Order is already here for everyone. It's not coming. It's not there. It's integrated completely within society through the UN, through all these charters, through UNESCO that translate to schools, education, and every system that links in between that, government, the lot. So there's
it's a massive spider web, and we're all caught underneath it to some extent.
Yes, everyone is.
And I think that's what most people feel, as they're going about their daily life, and they've got to get up at 6 o'clock and get the kids ready for school and go to work, and they don't see the children again till 5, and then before you know it's bedtime. And the only information they get is from the news, from the television, or a quick read of the newspaper.
Yeah, it tends to be set up like that in society to keep everyone controlled again.
On that treadmill, in the rat race, never questioning anything or looking outside of what it is that they're given, the information that they're given. But I think there is a kind of niggling feeling to most people, like, something's this isn't, something's not right. Like I'm sure this isn't how life is supposed to be, but they just never get the chance to express it or explore it, or to really.
No, again, unfortunately, everyone's not aware of all these systems that are that are over them and controlling them.
No.
And if everyone was, we'd be able to suddenly stand out and say, look, this is not acceptable and that's not acceptable. I'm not going to be putting up with that. But when you're talking about individuals that only know certain things, and you're never going to get that out, and it's never going to get light to wake up people. And some people will never wake up because they don't want to. They're comfortable with their fantasy.
Yeah. Someone described it to me as, when you actually physically wake someone up from sleep, someone's in bed asleep and you physically wake them up, that person's never happy with you for waking them up, like they're always a bit angry, like, oh, what are you waking me up for? Can I not have 5 more minutes of sleep? And that is kind of what it's like consciously as a person also, like you're trying to show people things, and they're just not ready to wake up yet, It's like they don't want to.
Yeah, this is so true. That because they're in that mindset, they're unlikely to take anything of value out that, they much prefer to believe the lie that they've been taught all their lives.
Yeah. An interesting thing, actually, my mum told me when I was really young was don't believe anything they tell you because they lie about everything. And I talked to her about, I asked her just recently, I said, do you remember telling me that? And she said, oh yeah, she said, I got it off my grandparents. And she said,
wow.
and a little bit the same also, like they didn't believe anything that the government or the powers that be were ever telling them or imposing on them. They always said that, you know, they lie about everything. And when it comes from like an older generation where they perhaps weren't so brainwashed with, you know, everything, you kind of take it on board a bit more and you think, yeah, maybe there's something to that.
Yeah. There's so much technology out there that they could brainwash us all quite easily. The only people that won't get brainwashed are the people that are living in the jungle or areas where there's no electric or anything.
Yeah. And when presented with this world, they think we're absolutely crazy, you know, so far away from nature and spirit that there's almost no coming back. So I used to love nature programs and documentaries and stuff when I was younger, and the one thing I always remembered was them saying that there aren't so many tribes in the world that are left. You know, like everything is becoming modern. There aren't so many people that live in tribes, and there's only so much land, and everything's been discovered. You know, there's like nothing to go and look at, basically, nothing to discover. But now it feels like there's a lot to discover. It feels like we're on a journey of discovery all the time. You know, every day we're discovering new things.
Oh, I do. You have to want to do it though, and you have to have the, you know, the get up and do it kind of attitude. Whereas it's easy just to not bother. You know, that's the mindset of a, you know, before we were waking up to flat Earth type of thing. Whereas if something, you know, didn't agree with you or didn't look at it, you wouldn't look into it. So I think you need to look into stuff, but you know, do it carefully.
When you first came across the flat Earth information, what did you think of it? Like, did you kind of think this is crazy, or?
Yeah, I did at the beginning, and then I just looked into it more and more over a period of time, and then kind of come to my own conclusion.
Yeah. I always think, especially like you've had some training in the military, but people that have really been in the military a long time, they've kind of had the brain reorganized, you know, to just follow instructions, don't ask questions. It's on a need to know basis, you know, and they're used to that way of thinking. So did
I
you kind
would
of
say the average person would be, but there's people that are unique out there that have such a high IQ that it would surpass anything that they could throw out anyway.
So how do you find that?
I know there are people like that because I speak to them. That's how. So yeah, that is it's kind of true, but it would be on a lesser basis. There's probably less military people that are actually fully awake, but yeah, I speak to many people like that, so it's a good thing. You know, ex-service personnel, that type, that are into flat Earth.
Yeah. So do you know many of those types of people that you have a good
got a good group of people? Yeah.
Like the whole evolution thing and coming from monkeys and everything.
Yeah, that's not. I don't buy that at all.
But I mean, like, Paul is a great man, but he has kind of been brought up on Attenborough, loves the Discovery Channel, you know, falls asleep watching stuff stuff about the galaxies and faraway planets and stuff. And he's really locked into that way of thinking. And he's one of those people that would never accept new information, you know. One, he wouldn't believe that there would be any point in lying to us, and two, it would be impossible to tell that lie and keep and to maintain it. But I think that was the point I was trying to make. When you know how things are compartmentalized, you've had that experience. So it's not really that difficult. It's not like thousands and thousands, or you know, every professor in every university knows this. Knows this. You know, they believe what they were taught and they believe what they're teaching. So it's not so difficult to keep going, in my opinion.
No, I think so.
So, actually, something I was looking at earlier, I can't remember. This is just a piece of paper I found in one of my books, but it's about the Renaissance period from the 14th to the 17th century, and that was the gradual widespread reform of education that kind of began.
Yeah, that's probably when they started to divert the different forms of education to set the control things in place. So that when the Copernican theory came out in 1500s or something like that, it ties in well with everything else.
Yeah.
Because they've not just had this education system just suddenly spring up overnight. It's been, you know, brewing for hundreds of years, you know, if not thousands, in respect to them knowing what they want to know and then not letting anybody else know anything other than that.
No, and then keeping the information
going on for thousands of years. Information's power.
Yeah, absolutely.
Power, so they, you know, regard that in the same light. Always.
You can imagine how it was done. Like when you think about third world countries that we've been and invaded and taken over, and like they say, like the first thing they do is they kill all the elders so that the people don't know the history. And then as people start to build society again, the newborns, the babies, they're taught the new language, like so that the old language is eventually forgotten. And so it only takes a few generations to destroy a culture, in a sense, and without.
Yeah, that's exactly what the common core and common purpose and the infrastructures that are in place today in all our Western societies.
Yeah, that's some scary stuff when you really look at it. And
oh, it is. Yeah, it's about 20 shows in itself just to explain it.
Yeah, I mean, I remember the one thing I remember when I was younger that was really big that came out was that political correctness.
Oh, that's just another part of starting to restrict freedom of speech and then making up words and using words that they construct to actually start to, again, ensure you've got a control because someone's not going to be saying someone against something else. So it's a way of putting the thumb on everyone, saying, you know, we can make a law and we'll tell you you're not allowed to say this, and if you say that, then, you know, someone else will be able to get you arrested and get you, you know, fined or have to go to court, whatever.
And it's kind of like putting red tape around people's speech and expression to the extent that you're not allowed to speak the truth. You know, you're not allowed to say directly.
Yeah, that's the way they slowly bring it in.
And
you have to do it slowly. It's a soft method that they use with all things.
Yeah,
with killing us and with education and anything like that, they do not rush what they do. They've got as much time as they need, which is forever. And they look at it that way, and therefore they plan 50, 100 years in advance when they have all these top elite meetings. and that's when they decide what they're going to do, because they're the people with the money, they're the people with the power or supposed power, so they're the ones that decide what goes into these systems and what happens at these meetings, and then things filter down from that to the UN, to the countries, to everyone in between.
So, for example, if it just comes on the news that we have to go and invade this country or whatever, it's new information to us, and we're kind of presented it in a scary way, like if we don't do this, this will happen to us. But really, it was planned way back, and they already decided years and years ago that the next bit of land that they'll take is this, and they'll redistribute all the people so that they're all separate from each other, and then they can rebuild it the way they like.
Yeah, so true. I mean, they've done that through the history that they've told us. Always, they've done it with many islands. Get rid of the people on there, then you've got the islands. So
it's like they're playing a huge game of Risk.
That's probably what the game was made. It's like a reminder to people.
It wasn't a game I ever enjoyed, actually. I'm not a tactical player like that, and I just never saw the point of it. But yeah, it is like that. I think everything is heavily controlled. Do you see a way out of it for the human race?
Hopefully, yeah.
You're positive.
If we wake up quick enough, and that's like 99% of people.
Yeah. What would you say that? How many people would you would you say that's awake? Like 0.001% of the population?
It's not. It can't be a great number, but I think it's gaining momentum, and that's something that YouTube or anything like that would, like to control, and they do.
Yeah, they do. Absolutely. I know people that have got really successful channels on YouTube, and they know people watching the videos, but that it's not the numbers aren't affected and things like that. So like they make you think that stuff isn't being as watched.
Oh yeah,
as much as it really is.
It's been watched, but you wouldn't know about it. In the respect that if you think that your channel's going to get out there, then it's unlikely to be pushed to the top of the queue. They're going to want gaming channels. They're going to want people doing stupid thing channels. That'll be the thing that they'll push to the top.
Yeah,
the advertisers aren't gonna. They're going to want to go for the biggest channels and that type of thing that make the most money for them.
Yeah, and if you're not into advertising, if that's not something you believe in, you're kind of on a lower rung there as well. But also, they also sanction what is watched in certain countries. I've noticed this on my YouTube channel. There's nothing on my channel that's kind of controversial or anything. Talk about flat Earth a little bit. Talked about people, about Mother Nature and nothing controversial. But a lot of them, it says like it's banned from certain countries. It's not, for whatever reason, it's not going to be seen in this country or that country or so many countries in Europe.
Each country will have their own. I've got a bit of feedback. Each country will have their own. So I'm getting feedback at the moment.
Okay.
You need to mute while I'm speaking. Thank you. Yeah, each country has their own feedback. And what they'll do is they'll have specific information of what they're not allowed to have in and what they're not allowed to have out. So they'll have filters and controls in the main internet providers and all the main links and nodes that come in and out of the country. So that's how they control the information. That's how they control the flow of it. And yeah, it's just one of those things. Each country will have their set amount of information that they allow and disallow, and it's filtered through that. So you can't circumvent that easily.
Because I mean, when living there in England or the main countries in Europe, you know, we're kind of under the impression that certain countries are really under a lot of control, and we're not like this. But it's not really the case. It's kind of like all countries are under a certain amount of control, and you're only given the freedoms that you're allowed to have. It's not.
This is it. Yeah, you're right with that. It's the same with all countries, but some are better and some are not as, diverse with these type of things. So you'll get some countries that will allow you to just camp freely or that type of thing, and then you've got countries that won't allow you to do that. But each country has their benefits and things that aren't so good, and some countries that are pulling away from the money structures, certainly the way to go forward, like Iceland or somewhere like that.
Yeah, Iceland is a very interesting place in itself. Just its location and its landscape, and I think is it the largest landmass in the northern hemisphere or something?
I'm not sure. No, not sure.
Just on its own, but yeah, they had a lot of problems some years back, and they all said no to giving the bankers all these bonuses, give the people back the money, sent people to prison, and it was really it felt like it was the start of something, and other countries were going to follow suit. So do you feel that other countries are going to go that way, or?
I think again, it's a job to say. There's so much kind of lined up that they've probably got planned for us. You could say anything. You could literally say there's going to be this event or a false flag or that type of thing. They'll do something shortly in the UK, I reckon. It's getting too long. People are getting too confident and too less scared of these supposed terrorists. So yeah, they'll certainly need to start implementing fear of one type or another.
So you just mentioned false flags there, and it's I mean, anybody that's got to looking into flat Earth, they must have come through the decision at some point that they're being fed lies through the news, and all these atrocities that are going on across Europe and America aren't necessary. Some of them are. When you look at a news event, how do you decide that it's a false flag event? What things are you looking for?
That's quite a difficult question, because you really have to analyze things post and prior to that. So you'd have to group the whole lot of data up and then look at it as best as you can. But again, most of that type of footage and information and that, unless you're there logging it, recording it, you can't really corroborate how truthful it is. But when you wouldn't be able to assess it during it. You have to look at it before and after to see what's happening.
One thing that I found interesting was, I think it was it Belgium airport that just at the beginning of the year had an airport in Belgium.
Yes.
Yeah.
They have a lot of terrorist attacks and that type of thing that they want to push on everyone. So the way they can do it is by having the action, which is the terrorist, and then causing an event to create a situation of fear within people. But there's many different ways they can do that. False flag is one of them.
Also, I think people also think that if there is a false flag, that people haven't necessarily died. And that is sometimes the case when you analyse certain events. It does seem 100% fake. But I don't think people should be under the illusion that that regular people aren't just sent to the slaughter to prove a point, to get some.
Yeah, there's many different types of events that they do, and this false flag would be one of, say, 10 or 20 different types of operations that they could use against everyone.
So, like, the technology that we've got today, because everybody's got a television in the living room and everybody's got mobile phones and connected to the internet, and instantly given all this information. I like to think that people use it in a positive way, but it can definitely be used against us. Like, if they want to get a message out there quickly, that to create a certain reaction in the populace, they can do it almost instantaneously.
Yeah.
People hear something and then retweet it themselves, or people pass on the information for them almost.
Yeah, I think that's why people need to be a bit more guarded with how they jump on something immediately, and just look into it, research it, and find their own conclusions, rather than just taking my word or your word or anyone's word for it. Really, that's the way to do it.
So looking forward to near events, because I represent FE UK, the Fukas. We've been invited to a stagecraft event, September it is, 2nd to the 4th of September, which is basically a family event. It's going to be people singing, dancing, lots of different activities for children. But there is going to be a stand there promoting the Flat Earth UK. Will you be going to that yourself?
Yeah, hopefully I should be able to. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
Really good. Because there have been, I think, 2 events so far that I call them the Fukas, because it's just a play on words. Have organised, and they've been very
they've been really
well
good.
received.
Yeah, really
good. Together and make friends and sphere all round.
Oh, I've enjoyed every time I've come down so far, and Laura and everyone else. They're really, really good people.
Yeah, definitely. And
really, it makes it people come down to actually see about it or actually speak about it for the first time. You need groups of people that are that way inclined, and encourage people to actually come down and have a good group of people that everyone's from a different background, everyone does a different job, everyone's got a different story, so you're not just got one set of people down there, you've got everyone from every walk of life, so it's nice. It's the way it should be with the flat earth. There's no restriction, there's no kind of this person can't be in or that person can't be. Everyone's opinion is a valid opinion, but whether it's correct or not, that's another debate and story. But yeah, everyone's opinion's valid, I'd say, in flat earth, but it's how you put that opinion forward to other people.
Yeah,
because people
definitely.
listen to it, and if you put the wrong information out, people will take that information as either correct or incorrect. So yeah, it's important what people say. If you say nonsense, then people might start to believe nonsense, and there's nothing worse than that in the respect of trying to learn something that you want to be more correct than less.
Yeah, I agree, because I mean we're trying to get away from the nonsense that we've kind of been brainwashed with since we were children, and so it is important that if you are giving people actual information, that it's as correct as it can be, without us all being field researchers and whatnot. So that's going to be. I'll leave links in the description box anyway, to your channel and to that event. But that's a family event, and also Mark Knight from Wakey Wakey is going to be there also. So it will be. I wish I could go personally, but it would be good to kind of see how it's to families and children. But unfortunately, I won't be involved. So yeah, is there anything else that you want to talk about tonight?
No, I think we've covered we've covered quite a lot. Really good. Thank you.
So yeah, thank you for coming on. So it's Robert Shortman from the Doomweaver 2007 YouTube channel. Do some really interesting talks with people. So check out his channel. I'll leave links in the description box. And yeah, thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you. It's been a pleasure.
Okay, good night.
Yeah, take care. Thank you.